Hi everyone that's here. Welcome to day 3, which is all about how to transmute hundreds of limitations at a time. Hundreds of glass ceilings at a time. A lot of people think, oh my God, with all the work that I've done, really? Really? There's more? I want to promise you that as consciousness, as life, as we all fly forward as creators, there's always new things to create upon, which means that we're constantly upgrading. Change is the greatest constant. It truly is. So now I'm glad your photons are connecting to my photons. Because we really are the heaven on earth construction crew. All right, kids. So my name is Jennifer Hough. You may or may not have ever met me, but I want to welcome you, especially if we've never communed before. But also if you've known you've been on the heaven on earth construction crew a long time. And I am definitely called to assist those that feel a sense that there's more to life. They feel like they're called by that little something more, like there's that life has in store a much bigger plan for all of us, and that something's possible for this world and for your personal world. And so for people that feel that tickle inside, that calling inside, that's why I feel like I was born. And so to assist you to actually be able to bridge into the reason why you're on the planet with ease and flow and grace, and actually feel incredibly fulfilled by that calling. That I just want to tell you, that calling that you feel inside is not a lie. All right, so in this next little bit, we're going to talk about how is it that we transmute thousands of limitations at a time in this day 3, our last day. So thousands of limitations can usually be done in a weekend or 4 days. Hundreds of limitations can usually be transmuted in an hour or 2. And how do we do that? And what's the benefit of that? That's what we're going to talk about right now. How do we do it? What's the physics of that? You know, how does that, what's happening in physics? Because the more you can see about the specifics, the more powerful the transmutation becomes. And then finally, of course, what the hell is transmutation? What does that mean? And how is it different from, say, I don't know, transformation? And it's an interesting paradigm shift. So for those of you who are always looking to upgrade your understanding of how consciousness works, that's a really good paradigm shift. It really isn't semantics. It's a very deliberate choice of words. So for those of you that like to stay on the fast track, I can't wait to tell you about what the difference is between transformation and transmutation, because it's significant, actually. Let's dive in together. So we're going to talk about how do you transmute hundreds of limitations at a time rather than having to excavate one at a time? The physics of that, and what does transmutation mean versus transformation, because it's significant to what we're talking about today. All right, and then I'm going to give you homework. So my 11 minutes starts now. First of all, I want to ask, and you can put in the comment field, how was your homework from yesterday? What did you notice? I noticed that a few of you actually, a few people, and maybe you're one of them, put down the percentage that you spent in, in total, how much time you spend in fear, how much time you spend in lack or resistance, that kind of stuff. I would love it if you would post that. Again, if you didn't listen to class 2, make sure you go back and listen, because the homework is really helpful. It really does help one to integrate. So let's talk about this first piece. And the first piece is actually going to start backwards. We're going to talk about transmutation first, because if we can talk about transmutation first, it'll give you the context for how we can do this. So are you actually interested in knowing how to not, like, have you ever been through the thing where you go to the program or the healer or the person or the, the therapist or the whoever, and you're working on one issue at a time, and it just feels like going through mud. It feels like you've talked about it so many times, like you've looked at it so many times. Have you felt that? Because I definitely did before I realized there was another way. It's not to say that some things don't come up that one has to have a conversation about. That is absolutely true. And sometimes, you need a therapist. That's okay. But we're talking about hidden things that create this glass ceiling. It's like metaphysical belief systems that exist as entities in your field that have a hold over you. Do you get what I'm saying? And because they have a hold over you and you don't know what they are, it's frustrating. Because you feel like you literally, and I think Kay, who listens a lot, will relate to this, you feel like you should be flying, yet you can't see what's in the way. Well, we find that that transmutation is the key to this. And transmutation is a paradigm shift for humanity, for sure. Isn't that fun? I was about to use my mascara as a marker. That's always fun. Okay, so how do we do this? What's the difference between transmutation? Again, I'm going to ask you to feel what we're talking about right now as opposed to actually thinking about it. In order to transmute things, it actually takes being willing to open to the information as opposed to thinking about it. If you're a real thinker, you'll try to control or you try to relate what I'm saying to something else you know. The best way to get the most out of these conversations is to actually not already know the conversation. Just let go of what you think you know so you could take it in at a deeper level. Okay? All right, let's do this thing. So, transformation. Let's draw a little person. Here's you. You have a really big head. Aren't you gorgeous? And here's you with an even bigger head. Wow. And what we're doing is we are talking about the difference between transformation and transmutation. This is how you transcend the glass ceiling of hundreds of beliefs at a time, like in an hour or 2 hours. What happens with beliefs, as someone asked during day 2, is when someone scares you, what happens is you develop protective mechanisms and you also get a little cellular PTSD. In other words, you hold on to the stressors. They call that somatizing things. You hold on to the stressors in your body, and then your mind has to make up a protective way of being, a belief system or a protective way of being in order to protect you from doing that again. So in other words, when I got yelled at when I was 4 years old, helping my dad in the basement, and he really yelled at me, and I was just little, and it kind of scared me. And so, well, it didn't kind of scare me, it really scared me. And because I felt like I wasn't getting it right, and I also felt in the moment like he didn't love me. So in that moment, I started collecting evidence for there must be something I'm doing wrong. And I noticed that if I tried to get everything right, at least I wouldn't get yelled at as much. So I changed my behavior. I created a protective mechanism called I'm going to be a perfectionist the rest of my life, and I'm going to be type A. Anyone ever done that? And that way, maybe no one will ever yell at me. Now, that's not true, because of course people yelled at me. And of course I got some things wrong. Life isn't about getting it perfect. It's about going on the journey and being creative, which means by definition, everything isn't going to be perfect, because how can you create upon perfection? You have to create, if we're creators, we're creating upon always things that have more opportunities. I didn't know that, neither do any little kids. And so we create these protective little mechanisms. You know, if you don't have enough money, then maybe you make sure all your credit card bills are always paid off, or if you notice your bank account is a certain way, or you saw that your parents went bankrupt or they struggled financially, you start to make up ways of being about money that aren't necessarily in flow with the entire universe. I know a lot of people that aren't willing to go in debt for their businesses. But, you know, I can tell you that if you really want to grow, oftentimes it means learning about going into debt and doing plans so that you can be assured that you can pay it back, but the returns on your investment are so much bigger. Do you see what I mean? We make up things that take us out of the flow with all of consciousness. When you are transforming, oh, and by the way, there's the whole thing about, that people have hurt you in love, etc., and then you put on weight, or no one ever took care of you, so you manifest diseases, so people will have to take care of you. All sorts of things happen to us. There are hundreds of them, hundreds and thousands of them for most people, and they don't even know they're there. That's why most people know there's something more to life. They can feel it, but there are these glass ceilings in the way that stop you from going direct with consciousness. When you transform them, you take one belief, and it's really a question. Transformation is about taking an old belief that doesn't work and transforming it into a new one. Okay? So you take an old belief. This is really powerful, you guys. Just take this in. Just really hear this with your cells rather than your ears and your intellect. Transformation is when you take a belief that doesn't work and find a new belief that you're willing to hold on to that works a little bit better. I call that surviving better than you did before. But that is not going direct with greater wisdom. For those of you who are, if you're smart enough to keep listening to this, this was the breakthrough of, this changed my life. This is the beginning of all of this work, this conversation right now. So listen, what is transmutation? So this happens in the head. We're talking to the head about logically trying to figure out a new belief that feels a little bit better or a lot better, that will definitely give you a better life, there's no question. But what is transmutation? Okay, you're gonna love this. Okay, transmutation is when you have all these hundreds of protective mechanisms. I call it like a river dam with logs in it, and then it has twigs in it to keep the logs there. So there's like maybe hundreds of beliefs that are the logs, and then little protective mechanisms and ways that you've had to skew your brain in order to keep those old beliefs in place. And they seem like they're really stuck. How to get rid of a whole bunch of those little twigs so the logs will fall out is transmutation. So transmutation is when you have a belief or you have hundreds of beliefs, but you start to understand, this is so powerful, you start to understand that any belief that you are entangled with, any belief about relationships, about love, about men, about money, you start to understand that humans invented the idea of beliefs. That beliefs themselves are ways of framing life so that we can feel safe. That when we come into our greater knowing, so let me give you a greater knowing example rather than a belief. So what I'm about to say is not something to believe, it's something to go into your cells with and understand more deeply so that the entire way you frame life changes. If you've watched the 3 Days of Awakening, these are called brain bridges. If you watched 3 Days of Awakening, which many of you have, one of those days of awakening is about family, for instance. So here's a perfect brain bridge. The universe knew exactly who your family would be before you got here, and most of them won't be related to you. I'm going to say it again. The universe knew exactly who your family was going to be before you got here. All of consciousness that adores you. But most of them won't be related to you. What that then means, because the meaning of that is this, that we have an expectation of family, and that a mother should be a certain way, a father should be a certain way, and then based on those expectations, we get upset all the time about our parents, our siblings, our aunts, our uncles, whomever. But in fact, they're just fallible human beings that were perfectly born to you. You weren't born to them, they were born to you. And they are assisting you to build bridges of healing within yourself. But your family are the ones that inspire you to be who you came here to be. Your family are the ones that call you to yourself. They don't have to be biologically related. Now, why did we project? Why did we project on fallible human beings that they should be all that in a bag of chips, unconditional, loving, incredible, fantastic, cheerleading all the time, have their shit handled, completely there for you 100% of the time? Because your true parent is consciousness. You are consciousness's idea. You are the universe's idea. You are God's idea, whatever you want to call it. But creation is there for you all the time, unconditional, loves you no matter what, cheerleads you all the way, is constantly redirecting you, is there for you 100% of the time. And that's how we project it on human parents. Now, when you make that brain bridge, what happens is you don't change a belief. There are hundreds of beliefs that change when you start to catch up to that brain bridge. That's just one brain bridge. Just breathe that in for a second. What would happen to your expectations of the people around you if you actually embodied the idea that they should be exactly the way they are? That you spending your life and the energy trying to get them to be some way else is a lot of energy spent. And then in fact, you got the perfect family for the bridges that you were meant to build for humanity. And then in fact, you are a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth, and with all of your skill sets and genius, my God, for you to fly forward with a new level of understanding, going out into humanity, giving people that level of relief because you've embodied it yourself, you become a beacon that emanates photons of healing wherever you go. So that's transmutation. Transmutation says you start to catch up to the understanding of the universe that's aligned with how the universe works. And when you align with physics, the beliefs that you have start to become less important. So let's talk about the physics of it. So this is part 2. So transmutation says that your body, let's just make sure we're really clear. So you still had all of these little belief systems, but what happens is all of consciousness is flowing forward and out, and there isn't anything that isn't happening for you. And you are a particle of all of creation, which is constantly flowing forward and out, made of the fabric of love that only wants to create upon itself and fly forward in the spirit of seeing how much more freedom and love we can emanate. It's all you care about when you lose your body. How much love did I emanate? How many bridges did I build to deeper understanding? Now, even that in and of itself is an activation. So the second part is not only brain bridges, it's also activations of these deeper truths. The deeper truths then wake up aspects of you that have been lying dormant, that have been in survival mode. And when they start to wake up, you're telling consciousness, as you start to realize more deeply, you act differently, you be differently, because as you understand consciousness and life differently, you no longer have an attachment to the beliefs that were keeping you safe, because you start to see that you can fly. So flying becomes the prime operator rather than keeping safe. You would rather go direct with consciousness and learn the language that the thing that unconditionally loves you is speaking to you. And as you learn that language, what happens is you only become interested in going direct with it rather than being bothered with fixing everything on planet Earth before you finally get on with yourself. When you start learning that language, you start getting confident about your ability to be able to be held in the arms of your flight forward and understand that you were born for a reason. And as you embody that reason and understand the skill sets necessary to be on the track that you were born for, hence the sense of urgency you feel inside, you raise in frequency more consistent with consciousness because you're embodying more of consciousness rather than the protective mechanisms that actually confine your frequency. You're starting to let it rip. As you let it rip, those higher frequencies put you in alignment with the tools and metaphysical mechanisms that will actually transmute hundreds of beliefs. The instructions and the codes to transmute them just lie at higher frequencies. They lie at frequencies. That's why people that you see are really flying, they just fly more. That's why you see the people that are really happy, they get even more fulfilled. Not that crappy things don't happen. Remember, I'm not talking about the happiness course. I'm talking about the fulfillment on your journey. Does that make sense? So you are a divine child of an infinite universe. And as you be more willing to become that rather than a child of this very dense earth, you start to come up in frequency. And when you come up in frequency, have you ever had this where you've had an aha or you've understood life differently, and then all of a sudden you can't even find the thing that was bothering you before. You can't even find why you were fighting with the person before. You can't even find why you were struggling with life before. You can't even find it. You can't even find the reason why you were depressed. And that's because those beliefs actually transmute in the presence of the light of you. And you leave them beneath you. They're down here. You're not down there anymore as you get new understandings. You're up here. So brain bridges and activations of deeper truths are the key to the transmutation. I hope that makes sense, and you can absolutely ask questions. So that's the physics of it. Now, how do you transmute the hundreds of beliefs? In the last couple of minutes here, how you transmute is you find people that live at those frequencies and you let them assist you. You know, people who really, you know, when you see on the internet, people say, you know, hang out with people that live what you want. Find those people and hang around them. Well, there's a metaphysical reason why that's a good thing to do. But there's one thing missing when they say that. You were also born to pay that forward. So you get to be someone that other people hang out with that want to go to where you are. So sometimes those quotes I see, it's like promoting, it's all about meanness. When it isn't. It's all, we're all going together. We're all going up together. So we all become a living bridge for the people who aren't, you know, who haven't quite gotten to where we are. And so just by being our example, we don't have to teach, we could just be who we are. We're emanating the codes, photon packages of light, leaving our bodies. You know that. When you're around people that are inspiring, they inspire you and they activate you and they make you want to be a better person. I have that happen all the time. So when I say I've had that happen all the time, I remember going to Thailand and our tour guide was so gracious and so incredibly there for us. I remember at the end, I just started crying and I said, my favorite part of the trip was not the elephants. It was not the Buddhist retreat. It wasn't any of those things. It was that you, my friend, make me want to be a better person. And I just cried. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, after all we've been through, it's like that truly is my favorite part of the trip. That's what we want to happen because who he was being, the codes, the metaphysical beingness of him comes out of him, and he did activate me, and he continues to affect me. So that's transmutation. Very cool, very short explanation, but how do you do that? Well, so first of all, if you come and hang out on facebook.com/groups/TWA Playground, you may already be there. Just come and join if you haven't already. And that's a place where we put lots of stuff that brings you up. But the work of doing that is literally my life's work, is the work of helping people transmute hundreds of, just get on with themselves. Because that's how I am. I had done so much work. I've been in every program. I became a Reiki master. I became facilitators of things. And oh my God. And I was realizing that I was always trying to fix myself. And then I had a series of awakened dreams that really freaked me out, quite frankly, because I was a business person. I was an economist. And it totally flipped me out to have these awakened dreams showing me the physics of how we become ourselves. I mean, we're already ourselves, but there's all this stuff in the way. I was like, what the heck? Like, really? Do I have to keep taking courses and doing stuff? And it was painful too, because I was always told, like, you gotta feel it all. Well, what I discovered is you have to feel some of it, but sometimes you can feel one thing that will transmute like hundreds of other things without you having to feel the hundreds of other things. So, and sometimes you got to feel something really hard because you're going to pay it forward later. That's why. You're going to pay it forward to someone else. That's why, that is the only reason why we have to feel certain things. You're going to be the bridge for it later. All right? So find someone to work with. You know, I do as many ways as we can assist, we do. But the real work happens in get out of your own way. And so this series happens so I could give you a sense of what happens in get out of your own way. And there's one coming up in March, and that is get out of your way to going direct with consciousness. It's all about how to go direct. So until February 14th, it is 30% off. I so recommend that you come live. It sells out very quickly. That way I can work with you one-on-one, and that way we can have a one-on-one session before I actually do a one-on-one, which is usually $800 an hour. So I'll do a session with you beforehand, and then we'll work one-on-one in the room, and there's only room for 18 people. So everyone that signs up with 30%, we're going to have a private group class. Okay, everyone that signs up before February 14th, we're going to do a private class. We're going to give you some bonus info about innate abilities. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know that, because it is my love, it is my privilege, it is my honor. Sometimes I think, that's what drives me. If you could feel, and I know that you can feel me right now, if you could feel how privileged I feel and how much in love with people I feel, especially those that come and do the work. It doesn't matter how much you're not liking yourself. I will fall in love with you, I promise. But it's at that level that so much work can be done, and really having the honor of paying forward this journey that I've been on, where the miraculous truly becomes normal and everyone can do it. Being a holographic seer, there is, I always say that and I laugh my head off because I think, yeah, I was an economist. But anyways, I digress. So being a holographic seer, there is nobody I can't see. There's also nobody that I've seen that doesn't have the capacity to live this way by going direct. No one. So thank you guys. So homework, let's talk about homework from today, okay? By the way, you can go to thewideawakening.com/going direct, and you can find out more about that program in March, 3rd week of March. Very excited. It's filling up quickly, and I'd be so excited to have you there. There's lots of energy building. Imagine if you could go direct with consciousness. Imagine if we could activate those abilities, and imagine just transmuting all this stuff that you've been working arduously on, or more importantly, the stuff that you don't even know that's there, that when you come up in frequency, it starts to transmute and you didn't even need to know about it. I mean, how cool is that? See, if you need to know about every little thing, it'll take you forever. If you're willing to not know, that's why class 2 is so important, because we talked about the importance of not knowing and letting yourself be served by your greater parent consciousness. All right, homework. First of all, please go and check out thewideawakening.com/going direct. The second thing is, watch day 1 and day 2 again, and just do it in order, slowly. And do the homework. Really answer. It's really easy to watch a Facebook Live and or to watch a video and just kind of go, meh, okay, good, heard it before. See, that's not doing the work. Answer the questions. The third thing is for your homework, is please allow yourself to consider the next time you listen to day 3, listen one more time. Don't make notes. The next time you listen, feel what it would be like, because it's an activation in and of itself, okay? Feel what it would be like to be able to go direct, to be free of the protective mechanisms, all the things you use to try to control your circumstances. Imagine that you had an incredible confidence, because that consideration in and of itself tells your body that you're interested in going direct. Do you see what I mean? And by doing that, and then asking my 2 favorite words, show me, you start a willingness to have a conversation, right? Then when you come and do the work with us, it's so friggin' juicy. So I thank you all for being here. And I love you, and have an amazing day, and do the homework and have fun with it.